Right. Right. Yesterday's video ended up being much more depressing than I intended for it to be. I haven't watched it back. I don't watch my videos back. However, I remember leaving it feeling like proper down, so to speak. Almost like I'd wasted a week of training because of the reasons outlined in the previous video. And when uploading my video today and just briefly looking through what I'd done and filling in the blanks of my training log, I realized that I did a really good week of work. I put in some work that week. So I was driving home thinking today, like, why the fuck was I so down, so negative? Like, why? Like, that's not how I wanted to start my year, That's not even really the energy that I've been feeling. So I was trying to figure out exactly what it was. And the only conclusion I can come to is the fact that I was not present during that work. I wasn't as aware as I would like to be. And I'm usually when it comes to training. So due to that lack of presence, that lack of awareness, that lack of gratitude for the moment, I underappreciated all the work that I had put in. Because I did some work, man. I did some work. And I started my year well. But for whatever reason, last night, I was just moping, being a little bitch. As if I had fucked up, which I hadn't. I lost focus. And due to losing focus, I lacked awareness. But I hadn't fucked up. I started my year strong. I started my year well. I already hit goals that I'd planned for the beginning of the year. Little goals. The 200 kilo deadlift. So on and so forth. So I had absolutely no reason to be down about it. But for whatever reason, I just wasn't aware of exactly what was happening in my head at the time, or why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And it took some self-reflection in order to really understand it. And I'm grateful that I came to that conclusion. Because it got me really thinking about like New Year's and the concept of New Year's and starting a year and how everybody approaches it differently. Like, I'm quite lucky to have people around me that attack their New Year's very differently. Some plan, some just continue what they were doing, some make quote unquote New Year's resolutions in an attempt to start the day well. My dad, for example, trains every day and has done my entire life for 40 days for Lent. Just little, like, everybody's got their own little thing. Me personally, like, I don't believe in allowing the change of a date to dictate how I'm supposed to feel from a perspective of like motivation or inspiration to do something and get something done. Because I'm a firm believer, in my personal experience, that if you have to wait for a date to come to you in order to make a change, then you're probably not going to make that change. That's been my experience. That's the way my mind works. And I'm simply just observing that fact. For me, if I ain't changing it today, it ain't changing. It's that simple. It doesn't matter if it's Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, 1st, 21st, 31st. Doesn't matter. If I ain't changing it today, I ain't changing it. That's why, to the annoyance of those closest to me, I can learn something new and then, okay, cool, there's a new rule set in stone for my life today as of this very second. And I find that interesting because I first and foremost look forward to seeing how that evolves throughout my life and how that changes, because I can imagine there being a lot of benefits to planning, for example, which is something one of my closest friends does. He plans a lot, and yeah, that just doesn't compute to me. It doesn't compute in my head how like I could plan for an entire year, but it works for him. Like, it works for him. Every year does his thing, and then every year man chalks shit off the board. trying to think who else. My brother sets goals, and even that, like, I'm not really like, I'm a goal setter. I have goals. I have loads of goals. Some very few written down. Majority of them just in my head, because I find myself way more focused on just the little goals that I have directly in front of me versus the bigger goals at play. Like, the whole goal setting culture never really appealed to me. It's never really come out of me like that. It's not something that I tend to write down. When I find myself writing things down spontaneously, it's just thoughts and processing shit. Because I'll be real, like, I don't really believe for me, with regards to what works for me, because I'm not intending to offend anybody by saying this. Like I said, like, people closest to me who I admire, like, they go about their business like this and it works for them. But for me, like, I don't really believe in planning or goal setting, because, like, to a certain extent, because if I make a plan and then life gets in the way, life throws a spanner in the works and makes it so that that plan is now completely off the table, I would then have to go through the mental process of accepting and understanding that that plan is no longer possible for reasons out of my control, and then going on to work on another plan to circumnavigate that. Like, fuck that. Like, I ain't got time for that. I'd much rather just have my goal tomorrow, train, do X for business purposes, do Y for family, so on and so forth, and just chip away on a daily basis, just every day, just chip away at little things that, ironically, support and bring me towards these ideas that I have in my head of my final goals in certain areas of life. Because I always have a crystal clear image of where I want to be in the areas in which I want to be empowered. But they're not something I'm tied to. They're something that ever evolves. It constantly changes. Maybe it may change in location, personnel, so on and so forth. They're very fluid for me. They're very, very fluid. My 10, 15, 20, 30 year goals, where I want to be when I'm 50, 75, so on and so forth. It's very, very fluid. Like, I can't guarantee, like, I'd be with my woman for the rest of my life if I could choose, but I can't guarantee that she's not gonna fucking crash the car in a week's time and die in a car crash. You understand? So whilst she's in my vision of where I'll be at 75 years old, like, that has to be fluid for me anyway. For me, that has to be fluid. Tying myself to any sort of expectations of the future has never served me personally. It's never ever served me. It's only ever resulted in failure or disappointment. So I personally choose to just circumnavigate all of those negative emotions by just focusing on today. What do I need to get done today? What needs to be done today? What can be done today in order for me to take me a step closer to these ideas that I have of where I want to be. And for me, that shit's liberating. Like, you'll never talk to me and find me in a position where I'm like, yeah, I'm working towards this, man, and I've got like, I wanted to get it done by this time, or I want to get it done by this time. That's weight. That's heavy. That's some heavy burdens for me. And I personally like living life light. I like floating through life weightlessly. You see me bouncing on this earth like I'm bouncing on the moon, because I just don't, like, I have never seen the value in putting a significant amount of weight on myself, which kind of contradicts something I was speaking about recently. And as I'm saying this, it just popped into my head, the idea that I'm the type of man who, like, gravitates towards and thrives off added responsibility for my family. And the greatest example I can think of, and that me and my missus cooked up one time in a conversation, was the dog. Like, when we first got the dog, I was at my most efficient, most focused, most abundant state of mind that I'd been in for an extremely, extremely, extremely long time. And that added responsibility for my family brought that out of me. All of a sudden, that leader, that inner leader, that natural leader came out of me and was able to flourish because it had a reason to. It had something to attack and grab by the by the horns on a daily basis. However, now that I think about it, that's very much responsibility for now, for the present. Like that's clearly what gets me going. Give me responsibility now. The idea of being responsible for something that may or may not happen in the future, no matter how much I think I can control it, just doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve me at all. And it also got me thinking about, again, New Year's and the change of the year, and you have this whole new year, new me culture, gonna get this done this year, Now, whilst I do see the new year as a checkpoint, and I do observe it as a checkpoint, I just see it as something where I assess, okay, I very briefly, in my own head, just look back on the year, this, that, and the third happened, this, that, and this happened, and it's led me to be doing this right now. Is this serving me? Most of the time it is, because I don't see why you would fucking do anything that isn't serving you. So, okay, let me continue doing what I'm doing, knowing that along that journey and along the way, I'm going to be extremely aware and receptive of signs that say, okay, you may want to change this, or you may want to change that. Now I can see why, like, the way in which I approach things could be a very like airy-fairy type way of approaching it, and I completely understand that, like, a lot of people on this planet need more structure, which makes sense, because there's areas of my life where structure empowers me. So it is something I definitely understand. It's just, yeah, I don't know. New Year's is always so strange to me, man. It's always so strange to me. And the culture that we live in as well, like, society's made it like so normal for you to go out and get absolutely plastered on New Year's. And okay, yes, I indulged when I was much younger. I don't remember the last time I went out for New Year's, for one, because it doesn't make sense to me why you would want to start your year as you don't mean to go on. Like, you don't want to wake up on a daily basis hanging from the night before for the following year, do you? So why would you start your year that way? That doesn't really make sense. And then, yes, you have the whole idea of, like, yeah, you let off steam, like, you go into the new year, you have a release, so to speak, and then you enter the new year, like, having let off some steam. I don't fucking know, bro. Like, I don't know. I'm just getting old, innit? You know what I mean? 25 going on 50 out here, fam. I might as well be a granddad already. I don't know, bro. I don't know. But the way I see it is simple. Get up. What you gotta do that will serve your goals, your greater purpose, whatever you want to call it, and get it fucking done. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow ain't promised. You might not make it. You might slip down the stairs, break your neck, and you're done out here, bro. That's the harsh reality of life. Like, the only moment that exists is now, and now is eternal. So, dwelling on the past, whether you miss a loved one, or your ex, or anything, you made a mistake on this project or that project, who the fuck cares, man? It doesn't matter. All that matters is now. In the same way that you can anticipate this and you can plan for that, but you might lose your leg tomorrow, you might lose your hearing, you might lose your sight, you might lose your life. So why spend today concerned with that? Doesn't really make sense to me. Doesn't really make sense to me. I could ramble about this all day, so I'm gonna fucking cut it off here, because this has been way longer than expected, but this is something we'll definitely expand upon. It feels good to finally get back onto the mic and have something that I want to talk about. It felt good. I could keep going, because it's been a while, but I'm not going to indulge like that. That would be unhealthy. And quickly before I go, I feel like what I referred to earlier with yesterday's video is a decent example. I found myself in a situation where I was dwelling on the past, thinking I didn't do enough, and therefore allowing myself to be like emotionally clouded to an extent, and therefore misjudging the work that I had put in and looking down upon the work that I had put in as if it wasn't enough, when in hindsight, without the emotional clouding, emotional goggles, whatever you want to call it, I was able to realize that no, I'd done enough. Yes, I had maybe not been as efficient or focused in certain areas where I would have liked to have been, but to say that I had a failure of a week, which was the energy that I was giving off, even if it wasn't the words that I was saying, was bullshit. Dwelling on the past in that moment didn't serve me. It would have been much more beneficial to me to have just been present, stay calm in the moment, assess it for what it was, rather than this idea that I had created in my emotional state about what it was. And I feel like the same thing can happen when you think about goals that you need to hit, that you feel like you're currently maybe behind on schedule for. It works both ways. It's a delicate balance, like all life. But again, thank you very much. If you made it this far, I won't waste any more of your time. Have a lovely morning, evening, day, whenever you're listening to this, and I shall see you tomorrow.